Hello, everyone. I'm back again. If you're watching the replay, this won't matter, but this is my second time live streaming today. Um, I, I'm really excited to share this content. And this is something that has been on my mind to talk more about my experience in pregnancy and stepping into motherhood. But for some reason, I just keep putting it off. So I've recorded my first video on first trimester, and I did that, and I'll link that below. But this video is going to talk about my experience in second trimester. And if you don't know me, hi, my name's Amanda, and I usually talk about things like nervous system care and working deliciously and more about feminine energy. But as I start to be, as I am becoming a mother, my baby's about 5 months old now. A lot of my perspective is like profoundly shifting around these topics and being greatly informed by becoming a mother and the transformational process of that. Like your brain literally changes when you become a mother, and it's such a wild experience, and I'm so grateful for it. But I know that, during pregnancy and even postpartum, I would just really like look up YouTube videos and find a lot of resonance in women who would share their experiences and their wisdom. And so in recording some of this, I want to share my experience as a way to give back and to offer something of value, maybe of relationship with someone else. So I hope this finds you in a good place. I hope you get something from it, even if you're not planning on being pregnant or haven't been pregnant. I put a poll up on my community board, and there was quite a bit of interest in recording videos around motherhood and pregnancy. And actually, one of my clients messaged me the other day and said, I just watched your video on the first trimester that I recorded a while ago, and I got so much from it around like the topics of surrender. So I'm just going to share. I hope that this finds you in a good place. And thank you so much. Keep in mind, anything that I share always, but especially around pregnancy, is simply from my experience and my perspective. Pregnancy, giving birth, all of these things is a very, very tender topic that's unique to every single person. So I by no means speak on behalf of like the general population of pregnancy and new mothers or things like that. This is simply my experience as someone who went through pregnancy and who's a new mother. Hi, Amber. Thank you for saying hi. Welcome in. So second trimester, I talked about first trimester as being kind of like icky and like also unknown. There was a lot like of going on in my body that wasn't seen physically and that I couldn't share because it's just so unknown what will happen first trimester. So that was a really big part of the energy of that first trimester. Once I hit second trimester, I started sharing it with a broader community, and I wasn't public about my pregnancy well into like third trimester actually, but I started sharing it more liberally in person, like as the opportunities presented itself. I started making phone calls to family, things like that. It was a really fun time. I do remember, for whatever reason, it took a while for me to physically show. So all throughout, it says, if you guys can let me know if you can hear me. It says that something about the bit rate. Let me know if you can't hear me. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. I remember having a bit of anxiety about my bump. I'm like, when is this bump going to come? Like, it felt like forever. And first trimester, I mean, it just looked like I maybe had like a big meal or something if I wore tight clothes. But I live in Minnesota and I'm stepping into winter. And so clothes get a little bit baggier anyways. And I just honestly, all throughout second trimester, I wasn't really seen in my pregnancy. I had jackets, all of these things. So, and I stopped going to yoga around this time, actually. That would be the one place where you maybe could see a little bump. But I had anxiety about it so much so that I called the birth center and I was like, can we just double check that everything's okay? Because I don't know. I just thought in my head, I'm like, when you get pregnant, you just get a bump. And I associated with that most of the time I would have this bump. I don't know why. This is just what I thought. But it took a while for that to come in my body type. And every body type is different. I happen to have a really long torso. I'm tall, so there's a lot of room in there. I also have a really strong core. So, everything was pretty like tucked in. But I remember that being a part of second trimester. I was like ready to have the experience of having the bump, and I didn't still. And I had anxiety about it and had to go kind of get looked at and things like that just to ease my anxiety. So much about being pregnant is like you don't have control. Like you have control over what you eat and your supplements and sleep, but there's a lot that you don't. And it's about surrendering around that softening that's happening in the body and the sensations that you get. So what I did, I mentioned I stopped going to yoga, and I went to yoga all throughout first trimester. It was really important for my mental health around that time. But what happened is I started getting something called pubic symphysis pain in my pelvis. And I'm really flexible by nature. Like my joints are flexible, my tissue's flexible. What happened was that I just started to get really flexible in my hips, and I started to feel like, okay, wow, these stretches, it's too much. Like I don't know my boundary. And I could just intuitively feel it wasn't right. Not to mention, I mentioned that I stopped going to hot yoga pretty early, but I was going into heated yoga rooms. And I just started to feel like, okay, it's time to back away from heat of any kind and deep stretching. So that was hard for me because, as you all know, I still could practice yoga, and I did, but going to this studio has just been a big part of my resource, my nervous system care, my well-being on all levels. And to step out of that space was a big decision for me. But I switched to prenatal Pilates instead. I found this awesome program. It's called the Bell Method, not affiliated. I'm just going to shout them out. I'll include a link to their program below, but they had a prenatal push Pilates course, and it was like several weeks of live recording, but they had a ton of pre-recorded exercises. And I just got like a squishy ball. I got a couple of weights. I got a booty band. And I would just do these workouts in my room. I wouldn't have to leave, which was really, really nice. And I attribute I think I'm going to share my birth story too. I don't know yet. It feels so sacred and tender. We'll see. But I did have a pretty smooth birthing experience, especially the quote unquote pushing phase. And I think a lot of the reason for that was that I trained the correct muscles to just know what to do. So a lot of their approach is not just about Pilates, right? About being in shape, but it's about training the right muscles in the pelvic floor so you can contract. It's called the transverse abdominis, this like core muscle, and then soften the pelvic floor at the same time so that baby can come through. And I did this for months, and I did it 3 times a week. It felt so good to move my body. I felt like they had a lot of stretches for the ribs. What happens too is like as baby grows, all the organs are kind of pushed up, and then the ribs get compressed, and you can start to have like rib pain, and they just addressed it. It was just a really, really eloquent program. And I think they had one yoga class that I did that was kind of safe for a pregnant body. And I did that a few times, but really more let go of the stretching because my body was stretching a lot already. And I stepped more into the strengthening, into feeling my boundary, into building muscle tone. And this served me really, really well. I stopped dancing. I mentioned that I was dancing a lot in first trimester, but I decided to stop performing, to stop going out dancing really. And part of this was I wanted to remain still private about my bump. Like I didn't want to be, even though I didn't really have a bump, there was still this like, when I go dancing, I wear tighter clothes. So I didn't want it to ever be a question like, oh, is she pregnant? Is she not pregnant? I just wanted to go out and be pregnant. And I did that in third trimester. So I'll talk about that in that video. But I stopped going out dancing really for that time. And I still went out dancing third trimester. So I'm going to talk about that because that was really fun to still move. Around this time, I remember I was researching a lot about how to be a mom. I'm like, I don't know. I don't babysit. I don't know anything about babies like at all. What do I need for my baby registry? So we planned, I decided to do both a mother blessing and have a baby shower. And, but I didn't know what to put on the registry. So a lot of this, I would watch YouTube videos of like recommendations for products that worked, products that didn't. And it was just like, it was a lot. Because you don't know what you need, and you won't know what you need until you have your baby, because everyone's different and everyone's baby is different. But it was helpful to at least have some ideas to look into products. And it did. It took a lot of upfront investment. My baby shower was really fun. I think that, am I going to talk about that? I'm looking at my notes right now. I think I had my baby shower. Yeah, I had that in the third trimester, and I had a mother blessing third trimester. So second trimester is a lot about planning those things. A mother blessing was different because I invited my close community of friends, and it was really like soul spirit. It was about more about me transitioning into motherhood than it was about the baby. So I did things like paint my belly. I planned how to okay, so all my friends came and painted my belly, and we did like a little sharing. I had them write affirmations at an affirmation station, and I pasted those affirmations out. We sang the lullaby that I still sing to my baby to this day. We sang it together. So the mother blessing was more geared towards my transformation to motherhood, and the baby shower is more like a traditional baby shower, except for it was co-ed. So my husband is from Venezuela, and he was kind of telling me that baby showers that he's used to are more co-ed and they're more like a party. Whereas the baby showers I'm used to going to are more like, okay, you get 10 females, you bring them together and you play games like identifying poopy diapers, and it's more like intimate and like game oriented. So the baby shower was actually so fun. It was co-ed, and he made a bunch of like delicious like beans and a whole tray of meat and rice, and we played really fun music in the background, and it was just like, it was a blast. So planning those things took a lot of time. And I would say in second trimester is a good time to do it because you have energy. And it's really nice to kind of focus that energy out. So sending the invitations, and I wrote like a really nice letter for the mother blessing, getting the addresses, stamping the letters, getting them out, making the baby registry. And on Amazon, I put a registry for postpartum care for me, because like, yes, you need baby clothes, you need stuff for baby, and everyone wants to get that stuff. But wow, you need a lot of stuff for you too as a mama, like nipple cream and like a sitz bath and, ice packs. And I mean, there's so much that can help ease your process and your recovery and postpartum. So I gave a link to those attending my mother blessing for that. And then also had to do research. It's like, what do I need? Because no one really talks about that. So again, if you're watching this and you're in second trimester and you're curious, like thinking of like, okay, now would be a good time to kind of plan what baby needs and what you need, and then do some of those logistical things so that you can host the event in second or third trimester and just be there. My husband is from Mexico, and they usually do co-ed showers too. Yeah, I thought it was way more fun, to be honest. Like I think we did a funny like drinking game from bottles, and my uncles and my like male cousins went up there with the baby bottles and were like chugging from them. I don't know if you're tuning in, if you're going to think that's appropriate or not, but we had fun. We had fun at that. Okay, so another thing I did was look up a labor and delivery class. Again, I knew nothing about pregnancy. I knew nothing about giving birth. I know a lot about the body. So this surprised me that I just didn't know. And I really know the power of the mind. So I wanted to find a program that had that acknowledgement of like the subconscious. A lot of what we see in mainstream media around giving birth has to do with like pain and pushing and struggle, and it's a curse, and like that's the conditioning we got. So I got plenty of that, and I wanted to find something where it's like, well, there's more possibilities. There's possibilities to experience pleasure while giving birth. There's possibilities to experience peace while giving birth. And so I found something called a hypnobirthing class. And what they did was it was education of what's going on in labor delivery, but they switched the language intentionally. So instead of contractions, for example, it's called surges. So then when you're feeling a contraction, what's signaling to the body is like you're like tightening in, whereas a surge is this surge of energy to surrender to. So they did a lot of language shifting, which I appreciated. And I still find myself using contractions, using that word to describe to like someone who's not in a hypnobirthing class. They also showed several birthing videos that were more about peace and surrender and like joy. And oh my gosh, I would just lose it every time we watched a birthing video. Like, I would just be choking back tears because this is just the moment when the baby arrives. And then whenever the father or the partner would hold the baby, I would just start crying because it's like, oh, it was so moving to me. And I found this to be a really nice course. Um, we decided to do it in person. There were online options, but we would kind of get ready on a Tuesday night and drive to our course. And we got warm neck wraps and tea, and someone would bring snacks. It was a really nice time for my partner and I to just bond, to be like, wow, this is happening. And they did a lot of sharing of how to manage any intense sensations that come up, and breath interventions, and they offered hypnosis. So I listened to hypnosis probably every night leading up to my birth because I know how powerful that is. Just positive affirmations about, what the birth can be like, how to, the body's intelligent, the body knows what to do. And I was really diligent about that. Amber, you did the same thing. Yeah, that's great. I hope you liked it. I'm curious what you thought of it. And James listened with me a few times. So we'd fall asleep to the track. And so he was listening, I was listening. It was just a really, really good experience. And I'm glad that we invested in that. What else did I do? Nutrition. Oh yeah. I was really, really big on nutrition. So I don't know. It was my nesting instinct. Like, I normally like cooking, but I got this book. It's called The First 40 Days. I highly recommend it. It was so inspiring. And I started just kind of stocking up on my pantry. I got this book, how to use the Instapot. And I was just like, let me feed and nourish myself, because as I nourish myself, I'm nourishing this baby that's growing inside of me, this life that's growing inside of me. And I was like, this is something that I can do to, positively influence this experience. And I did it and I loved it. I loved going to the grocery store. I loved making lists. I loved cooking. I was in like full nesting mode. So I really, really like invested in that. I would get the book to show you. I'm just going to link the video. So I have to link, what am I linking? The First 40 Days cookbook. And I'm linking one other thing. I'll have to go back and rewatch it just so that I make sure I'm getting, oh yeah, the Bell Method, the Pilates class. Yeah, and there's a part of me that's like, okay, I'm going to be a mom now. I want to cook for my family and nourish my family. So that was really interesting. I mentioned in first trimester, I was craving sugar. I was still craving sugar. I craved sugar my whole pregnancy. I could just polish off like 3 donuts at a time, not a problem. But I will say second trimester, it started opening up to like, I could eat more food, which was really nice. I didn't have that ick feeling. Second trimester is just really lovely. Like for me, it was really lovely. It was just like a reprieve kind of in between first trimester and third. And they all have their flavors, but I just felt like second was a little easier in some regards. I did self-care this whole time. So I saw an acupuncturist, which really, really helped with processing the emotions, the hormones. I worked with a chiropractor, and this really came into play a lot in third trimester. I sought out an osteopath, someone who works with the fascia and connective tissue, to make sure that my body was balanced. I saw a massage therapist, and you guys, I'm a body geek. So I did all those things. I don't think you need to do all of them, but know that these things can be a resource for you in your experience. I also did a skin brushing often. I did my oil massage. I did gua sha, lots of cuddling. So I cuddled a lot with my husband, like that produced oxytocin. It helped me feel safe. It helped me feel secure, supported, protected. Like I can't explain it. It was just biological. Like when he would hold me, I would just like, oh, I could just rest. And we would just do that a lot. So that was really important part of my experience. So I kind of just like got into this rhythm in second trimester. I looked, I found my healers. I got my nutrition set. Went to labor and delivery. I felt like a full-time job. I'm not going to lie. Like I was like, wow. And I'm self-employed, so I do have the time and space to step back a little bit from producing work. And I did. I really dove into just being pregnant and what that feels like. And I was still seeing clients here and there. And, James is very supportive in providing and things like that. So I did have the luxury to really dive into the experience. And I'm sure, like, if I do end up having a second child, that this will change a lot, because I'm not going to have a ton of time to do an oil massage and skin brush, like I'll have another child to watch over. So this was unique to having a first child, I think, of like having all this space to like learn to be a mother, to do the research, to take care of myself, to be in my body in pregnancy for the first time. Because it's honestly such a trip to grow life in the body and the hormones. And I mean, just learning about it, it's fascinating. So I think that's all that I have on second trimester. And then I'll maybe share a bit more about the mother blessing, what that was like to experience, and maybe a bit more about the baby shower in third trimester, because that's when we hosted it. So I'll share about that in the next video, third trimester. And then I'm going to share also a fourth trimester one, which is the 3 months after you have a baby, because that was a really unique experience for me that I think is not often talked about. And I may or may not share my birth experience. We'll see. But yeah, anyways, thank you for tuning in. I know, Amber, you're here, and it looks like a couple of people tuned in. This is new for me to share. And so I want to reach out to new moms, to parents, and say that you're doing a good job. You're doing great. It's not always easy. It is such a blessing at times. And it's also really hard at times, both the transformational feeling of being pregnant, of having a partner who's pregnant, and then having a baby. Like, what a unique time. It's so beautiful. So I'm sending you love wherever you're at in your journey. So much love, so much heart. I hope that this gave you maybe some ideas, and let me know if you have questions below as you navigate through your own journey, or maybe reflect on the journey you've already had, and give this video a like, and